Hello and welcome to What's Next. It's the Indy NXT Oval Series here from Richmond Raceway. We're back for a return track from the inaugural season rather, back into 2026 Season 1 here. Back at the Richmond Raceway, this time during the daytime, which will offer its own unique challenge, as tires tend to wear a bit more when the sun is out and the track is hot. Sophie, what are we in for here from a kind of classic short track venue here in Richmond?
For sure, Jacob. This is a classic venue, more known for NASCAR. Although the IndyCar did come here in the 2000s and was supposed to come during the COVID season, but ultimately that didn't pan out. However, this is a track, it's kind of polarizing. A lot of people like Iowa, hate Richmond, love Richmond, hate Iowa. It is a D-shaped short oval that has its lovers and its haters.
Well, as a lover of both for at least a long time, Richmond Raceway was one of the few tracks back in the NASCAR Thunder 2003 days I could consistently beat the AI out in the kind of the first season of the career mode, as people tend to know your car is generally underpowered, so you're trying to beat them out on strategy, and Richmond was one of the tracks I could do that at with decent consistency as we get cars rolling out into qualifying here. They are similar. Ultimately, Iowa was kind of modeled after Richmond, as it was one of Rusty Wallace's favorite tracks. So obviously there's a bit of difference here. You know, the track's a little smaller. The banking's not quite as steep. And certainly nowadays with the repave done from Iowa, the tracks drive just that little bit differently. Not quite as many grooves on offer as we saw in weeks gone by. But Dylan Vilashinsky, he's back here once more in the number 3 machine tonight for Get Good Racing. He's going for his second qualifying lap now. Currently sits third provisionally. We'll see as he works his way off into turns 3 and 4 here if he can improve on that time. Chris Wetz currently jumps to the pole. Vilashinsky not quite enough. 1,000th the margin.
Actually, on my screen, Jacob, they have identical times, so it's below the 1,000th there. Oh, as Kirchenbauer goes P1. Kirchenbauer goes P1 with a 17.370, as opposed to the 374s of Wetz and Vilashinsky.
Yeah, it's very, very tight here qualifying so far. Top 3 separated by just 0.005 of a second.
So and then it's still tight because Brandon Trost is at a 17.39. So top 4 within the same 10th of a second.
Yeah, Trost with a 17.4 flat. Indy on a 13.370. Just 300 separating those drivers. And if you even go back to Taylor Thurman, he's only 1/10 off the pole time so far. A couple cars still yet to qualify, among them Andre Castro, who we know is a very fast driver in his own right. Last week's winner from Gateway, Ty Keela, still yet to set a time. Got Yari Brubaker as well. We're going to have 15 IL-15s fitting, taking on Richmond tonight. We thank everybody for tuning in to kind of the midway coverage, kind of the meat and the sandwich of our Oval Series action here on Tuesday night. We just wrapped up Indy cars from Michigan in the Oval Fix Series. We've got Indy next here from Richmond, and then we'll round it off with the Area 51 INDYCAR Series from, let me double check, where is Area 51 tonight? That'll be Nashville Superspeedway. Mark Murphy, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time on the call for that one. Plenty more coverage yet to come throughout the rest of the week with the likes of the Horizon IndyCar Series and Formula Super Series tomorrow night. Both taking on Motegi in different configurations. Horizon will be taking on the Oval, and Formula Super Series will be taking on the East Course, which will be very interesting. Not one you get to see much, if at all, in racing competition, but that'll be certainly interesting in those Super Formula machines. Be sure to tune into that one. Me and Sophie will be back for their third round of their season. Still working through qualifying here. Ty Keela, the last car to get a time on the board. Not sure if he's going to, as he's already completed both his qualifying laps, but not put a time up on the board, so he'll be starting from the tail end of the field, it looks like, as we get into the final minute. Gary Yost still circulating the track, getting some extra practice laps in. quite the tightly packed field, as we've now got Castro working his way into the top 5, just 600s off that pole speed set by Andy Kirchenbauer. It's going to be a very, very interesting race tonight.
Yeah, the margins are incredibly tight, and one of the things about this Indy NXT car is it's not as affected by dirty air as its bigger sibling, the full-size IndyCar, and correspondingly, they do have less tools to use. You can only adjust the ARBs in the IL-15 on the fixed sets, and there is no weight jacker. So while there is less dirty air, there's less you can do about what is there.
Well, I think the other thing to kind of note with that is there's less range of adjustments, but those adjustments seem to have a much larger impact on this car than they do the Indy car, particularly that rear roll bar. You'll often hear of drivers kind of trying to loosen the car up as much as possible, particularly on these ovals. Common configurations of trying to get it to a 1 front bar to a 5 rear, make that thing yaw all the way out on a lot of these setups. As we've concluded qualifying here, we'll run through the starting grid, see who's got themselves a solid starting spot here for the 70-lap main event from Richmond. It will be none other than reigning series champ Andy Kirchenbauer on the pole with a 17.370. Alongside him will be Chris Wetz, the winner last time we came here from Richmond. 4 thousandths off. He'll start on the outside of the front row. Dylan Vilashinsky, current points leader, will start on the inside of Brandon Trost. He's back for some more IL-15 action here from Richmond. Andre Castro, we saw him in action from Mexico City last night. He's sporting that Guinness livery once more. We'll start on the inside of row 3. Taylor Thurman will roll off 6th. Bill J. Walker will be 7th. Ryan A. Brown, back for more, the winner from Iowa earlier this season, will roll off from the 8th spot. Gary Yost qualifies inside the top 10 in the number 8 machine. Jarrett Corey for Luke Mansky Racing Esports is back after a podium finish from the IndyCar Open Series last night. Crash Neon will line up 11th alongside Brian Dees in the 12th spot. Jason Goodman will line up 13th. Yari Brubaker in 14th, and Road Racing's Ty Keela, winner from last week at Gateway, is doing the last to first here from Richmond. We've got ourselves 2 pace laps here. Track's under a mile, so we'll quickly get back to the front of the field here and get a rundown quickly of the point standings for at least the first couple positions before we get going here. Vilashinsky leads on 1,472 over Andy Kirchenbauer in second on 1,340. Ryan A. Brown sits on 1,123. Jarrett Corey has worked his way up to the 4th spot on 1,081. See Jason Goodman in 5th, Taylor Thurman, Chris Fletcher, Crash Neon, Clay Kirchenbauer, and Robert Kempis will round out the top 10. You got Corey Kobe, Frisky Frankie Frank Wynn in 12th, John Corwin, Ethan Harrison. The likes of Gary Yost, Luke Reed are in there as well, working all the way down through the top 25. Still a lot to fight for, even if the championship may wind up out of reach for drivers here in Indy NXT Oval Series competition. We're about to head under green, pace cars down the pit lane.
Yes, the field under the control of Andy Kirchenbauer is green. Green flag in the air. Andy Kirchenbauer gets a good enough launch to get ahead of Chris Wetz. Vilashinsky has Brandon Trost under him right away. But Dylan Vilashinsky holds on.
Yeah, that high line preferred here. Vilashinsky's going to look to the high side on Chris Wetz. Not able to get alongside. Trost under fire from Andre Castro for the 4th spot now, as we've got a couple battles side by side. Jarrett Corey looking to the inside of Ryan Brown.
Yes, and Vilashinsky has already gotten around Chris Wetz and is setting his sights on the leader of Andy Kirchenbauer.
Oh, we got a car around.
Oh, car on the wall, car on the wall.
It's going to be Ryan Brown. Have to see what happened
that's
to Ryan.
Heavy contact. That Indy NXT machine not looking too happy. Looks to me that's going to be night done for Ryan Brown.
Yeah, so he's
the rear all folded.
Yeah, he's side by side with Jarrett Corey heading into turns 1 and 2. Corey working the inside line. They'll roll through the first couple corners here from Richmond. Corey's going to track up just a little bit. I think, yeah, Brown just runs out of room on the high side. He makes contact with the outside wall. Corey does a good job of avoiding getting slid into, and they'll head off into turn 3, and around Brown's car will go. You have to wonder, ooh, I think that's going to be another car involved there. We'll have to see if that's, I believe that's going to be the 12 of Brian D's with damage potentially. So that's going to be rough going for the driver of the 12 machine as well. But Ryan Brown out early, not what he was looking to see.
No, all these restarts, the resetting of the field, that can be very frustrating. And it looks like the contact was actually Jari Brubaker, but iRacing forgave him. Netcode will forgive your damage, not necessarily your SR.
No, but Jari working his way from deep in the field will have maybe an opportunity to get a bit of a reset as the field gets bunched back up. He may come down the pit lane anyway. It looks like he has done so to maybe get any potential damage he's got on that IL-15 sorted out before returning to the raceway here from Richmond. Certainly quite the adventurous start here in the opening couple laps as Vilashinsky's made the move up to second. You've got Chris Wetz down to third. Trost held on to fourth over Andre Castro. Got Taylor Thurman, Jarrett Corey, Bill Walker, Crash Neon, and Jason Goodman rounding out the top 10. So we've got 14 cars still circulating the speedway now as Jari Brubaker will get back onto the course.
Yeah, right now under caution, everyone's kind of complaining about the setup, saying that it's incredibly tight, and that probably contributed to the incident in question that brought out this yellow, Jacob. Obviously, Ryan Brown got tight off the corner, and also Jarrett Corey was as well. And that's why there was contact between them, but obviously Ryan Brown lost it on his own into turn number 3.
Yeah, we'll have to see kind of how that evolves over the course of the race. Obviously, the cold tires kind of make the car behave much differently than when they get up to temp, and with these smaller tracks, it takes a couple more laps for those tires to really get into a window where you can use them to their fullest extent, and we'll kind of see how that evolves over the course of the race here. Working lap number 6 behind the pace car. The lights are out, so we will be going green this time. Andy Kirchenbauer will get control of the field once again. He's started on the pole and led them all so far. Can he get a solid restart here to hold off his championship competitor, Dylan Vilashinsky?
Yeah, the iRacing sedan has dived onto the pit lane. The field is in the control of Andy Kirchenbauer. He launches, doesn't really get a huge gap between him and Vilashinsky as he fires it off into turn number 1.
Now we see Jarrett Corey make the move on Taylor Thurman for the 7th spot, or rather hold him off. Castro's looking to the inside of Brendan Trost for 4th.
Right, and as we heard the drivers talking about, if it's really tight, trying to pass on the inside is going to be really tough because you're going to want to wash up on the exit of the corner, so you really can't get the power down the way that you're wanting to. It seems to be why the Highline's a little bit more preferred.
Yeah, able to carry a bit more speed, a bit more momentum, not have to worry about maybe washing out to cars to your outside, as there's really only so many outside lanes to work here, as Indy Kirchenbauer will go purple with a 17.563.
Yeah, we're currently watching Jarrett Corey is currently working over Andre Castro. Corey's going to look low into turn number 1 in that Penske Esports machine. Gets the move done, makes it look really easy after I said that it would be difficult to pass on the low side. So possibly Castro maybe just struggling with this next machine.
It could also be that Jarrett's found something early run here. I saw him in the previous session to this one, so maybe he took that time to maybe figure out how this car was going to work out early in these runs, is taking advantage of it when he knows the kind of the going is good early in the run to make moves.
And once again, Indy Kirchenbauer going purple. 17.358. That's faster than pole pole time. So obviously the tires are now up to temperature after a couple more laps. They're really working good, as there's a big three-way battle between Trost, Wetz, and Corey.
Trost just made the move on Chris Wetz for the 3rd spot. Corey will look to the inside on Wetz into 3 and 4 here.
Just in the background is Castro being worked over by Taylor Thurman.
Taylor Thurman looking to make moves up through the field as Trost has made it on through on Wetz, as is Corey. That's going to move Wetz down to 5th. Quick progress for drivers that qualified, maybe a bit worse than they wanted to, but ultimately working their way forward. We'll see if they're able to make some continued progress as Thurman looks to the inside on Castro into 1 and 2 here, not quite alongside.
No, it looks like Thurman to get down to the bottom of the corner kind of gave up some of his momentum, and that allowed Andre Castro to clear and to kind of hang on, because on the high side, that's where you're getting all of your momentum. Because now Thurman's looking a little higher on Castro through 1 and 2.
Castro looking to try to garner as much speed as he can. He'll run low in 3 and 4 this time. We've got Clay Kirchenbauer chiming in the chat. He wanted to run, but he's not feeling the greatest. He's hoping that his kid, Indy, will bring it on home tonight. He's doing so far so good, leading every lap so far, about 0.4 of a second up the road from Dylan Vilashinsky in the second spot. Gap starting to build up to the rest of the field from those two drivers as Brendan Trost lingers about a second back from Dylan.
Yeah, Dylan is not letting Indy Kirchenbauer get far away here. The championship's largely in his control right now, but not exactly keen to give the one possible protagonist besides him much points.
Yeah, he's won the bulk of the races this season. When he hasn't been winning, he's basically been on the podium every week, barring a very early incident from the Iowa Speedway earlier on this season. So he's put up quite the championship performance here in the Indy NXT Oval Series. Of course, he's joined by another 4 winners this season, even in spite of that dominance, with the most recent being Ty Keela last week from Gateway. We're looking to see if maybe another driver will etch their name into the book here tonight. But nonetheless, we've got the 2 championship contenders right at the front, right where they belong, more or less, trying to look out for another win here from Richmond.
Yeah, the field is currently kind of spreading out a good bit. There's not really much of a close battles per se, other than Crash Neon and Jason Goodman at the towards the bottom of the top 5. That battle for 8th position. Goodman has it. Neon wants it. Neon looking low through 1 and 2.
Yeah, closest battle on track. You've got Andre Castro getting closer on Chris Wetz. That gap kind of expands and contracts depending on where you find them on the tracks. We'll keep an eye on that one as well. Crash Neon's looking to move up another spot here on Jason Goodman. Not quite able to garner the momentum. He's starting to slowly roll backwards now. Maybe just getting a little too eager to make that move. He's going to have to build the momentum back up.
Yeah, it's so easy to lose momentum. Like, we obviously saw Taylor Thurman was all over Andre Castro. Now Castro has opened that gap up to about half a second, while he has managed to close the gap on Chris Wetz, has Andre Castro. So the momentum in this race can definitely shift suddenly, as passing is incredibly difficult, it seems. Garrett Corey and Brandon Trost seem to be the exception, not the rule.
Yeah, they capitalized kind of when the cars are closest together. You see Goodman have a bit of a slip up off turn 4 there. That's going to give Neon another look at it. He'll run low, but ultimately not close enough to get alongside. Goodman almost makes contact with that turn 2 wall. Stays in it. Neon slowly working his way back into the picture as Goodman gets real close to that wall once again off 4.
Yes, and one thing to start keeping into mind as I look at the relative for Indy Kirchenbauer, Yari Brubaker and Ty Keela are about 7 seconds up the road. So it might be possible, as we are not even halfway in this race, if it goes green, that Indy Kirchenbauer is going to have to deal with lap traffic now.
Yeah, we just saw Crash Neon make the move on Jason Goodman heading off into turns 1 and 2. That'll move Neon up to the 8th spot. He'll be looking to try to chase down Taylor Thurman for 7th. That'll move the closest battle on track kind of up in that top 3 area. The likes of Dylan Vilashinsky and Brendan Trost separated by now 0.6 of a second. Trost is starting to find something maybe on this longer run here as he's slowly starting to reel back in Vilashinsky in the 2nd spot.
Yeah, Brandon Trost was one of the people talking about how tight the car was and how it just needed to get tire temp in for him to feel comfortable with it. And we're kind of seeing that as that pink machine is starting to get faster and faster as the run moves along.
Yeah, slowly reeling in Vilashinsky. That gap inside 0.6 of a second as they enter turns 3 and 4. We'll see if that continues to fall over the course of the rest of the laps as we approach the halfway mark. here from Richmond. We've got one more race left after this one for the first season of 2026 for the Indy NXT Oval Series. That'll take place from the Tricky Triangle at Pocono Raceway, of course, a track that doesn't really need too much of an introduction given its iconic shape and historic nature for open wheel racing here in the United States. It'll round out our first season of 2026, and we'll roll off into the sunset for this one and then into 2026 season 2, where we'll be back for more Indy NXT Series action. Brendan Trost starting to lose just a little bit here. Gaps back outside that 0.6 of a second bracket.
Yes, but he has opened up a 1 second gap to Jarrett Corey. But Corey is now starting to eat back into Brandon Trost. Tire conservation seems to be the name of the game a little bit here, Jacob. More so than at other tracks that we go to. Not quite as severe as with the IndyCar. Like when you'll see the IndyCar here or at Iowa, you'll see people lifting out of the throttle. I'd be curious, Jacob, if we start seeing some of that tire conservation from the likes of Brandon Trost, from the likes of Dylan Vilashinsky.
Let's hop back to Crash Neon. He's going to be the closest car to another now as he's chasing down Taylor Thurman for 8th. And let's see what he's doing in his IL-15. So a bit of a lift into 3 and 4 there. He'll look to the inside on Thurman off the corner there. See a lift on the throttle, a downshift to 5th from 6th. He'll punch back in and get back up to speed off the corner. So it does look like we're lifting, even if only just. Likely to kind of keep those tires underneath you. I had found kind of in testing earlier this week that you could kind of run full tilt, but that really beat up those tires on the longer runs. So these drivers are trying to get the most mileage out of these Firestone tires that they can, as Crash Neon's all over the back of Taylor Thurman for the 7th spot.
Yes, and one of the things to keep in mind, Jacob, is even if we get a late caution, doesn't mean any of these drivers will be switching tires, because there are no tires for them to switch to. They're tires you start at the beginning of the race, the tires that need to take you to the end. So that's why you're seeing a lot of these drivers lifting on entry to try and preserve that rubber.
Yeah, and we've particularly noted that this car has a lot heavier rear wear than we're used to seeing in other machines here on the iRacing service, you know, the likes of the IndyCar and others. More known for maybe right front wear on the ovals. These cars tend to wear the rear tires out even on the road courses, so it's certainly a different dynamic as those tires wear over time. Jarrett Corey has started to drastically close in on Brendan Trost now. Gap's only a 0.5 second between himself and Trost now, depending on where you catch him on the speedway. So we're wondering if maybe Trost has encountered a wall with those Firestone tires.
Yeah, Trost last lap was an 18 flat. For reference, Indy Kirkwood 17.7, Dylan Vilashinsky 17.8, Jarrett Corey 17.8. So looks to me like Brandon Trost is struggling again at 18.0, and Jarrett Corey almost 0.2 of a lap faster. So it's possible that in an effort to try and catch up and stay in touch with that Get Good racing machine, Vilashinsky Trost has burned off his rubber.
Yeah, we'll kind of monitor that situation as it progresses. Last time by, the lap times between Corey and Trost were much closer, but that may just be as Corey starts to close in, he's starting to get a bit more impact. He clocks the turn 4 wall there, I believe. Doesn't look like he's got any damage on that IL-15, but that's likely going to be, you know, the difficulties he encounters as he gets closer to the likes of Trost. So it's going to make his car much more difficult to handle. Even if he's got the better tires, catching him is going to be one thing, passing him is going to be another, as we saw and figure that passing is going to be a bit of a premium. As Crash Neon's made the move on Taylor Thurman. They're side by side into turns 1 and 2 here. He's looking to the inside, looking for that 7th spot.
Yeah, I did mention at the beginning of this race that dirty air wasn't as much of a factor in these cars, and maybe that needs changes here, Jacob. Maybe it's a little different here than other places.
Well, you got to imagine with the tight corner radius you have here, that's going to be a much more drastic issue, as we've still got Neon and Thurman side by side. Thurman will clear that time around, and I think we're going to see a move for third rather, before too long, as Corey's within 0.3 of a second now. He's just going to be looking to roll enough momentum to get alongside Trost to try to make a move as we get to the closing stages of the final third of this race.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm paying a note to is Chris Wetz has Andre Castro all over, and Castro now makes the move on Wetz. Perhaps Castro was just trying to bide his time there, preserve his tires, because he is now not far off the back of Jarrett Corey.
Yeah, Corey now slowly creeping back towards Trost. That gap stayed roughly within 0.3 since we've caught onto it now. Corey will close in turns 3 and 4 here, garner a bit more momentum off the corner here, but Trost still holding steady just ahead of him. Last time by, Corey was just a couple hundredths faster than Trost. We'll see if he's able to build the momentum to get to him within the last 20 laps of this event.
And one of the things I'm thinking about is, again, the gaps here are so fine, and when they are that fine, it's so difficult to build a run where you get the momentum because, again, when you have a car on the high side or when you are trying to avoid getting pinched by someone, to get a good run off the straightaway, those kind of fine of margins make where that's enough to keep that person behind you.
Yeah, we're seeing that with the likes of Taylor Thurman and Crash Neon. Neon was side by side with Thurman the bulk of that last time by, but he'll funnel back behind Thurman. Crash has been trying to work that low side that we've seen a number of drivers get away with tonight, but I think the tires are worn out to the point where that low line just doesn't have the big kind of gusto advantage it maybe did early on in the run when people were trying to get the cars underneath of them, and the guys that had it better underneath of them were able to make those big moves.
Yeah, and that's kind of something we're seeing when you look at the battle for third, is Brendan Trost has been running the high line in all of the corners and then kind of filtering in, running different lines, possibly as a way of conserving that Firestone rubber.
Yeah, Thurman's still holding tough on Neon on the outside. Neon's holding tough on the inside. He'll be side by side into turns 3 and 4 here. Stay side by side down the front stretch. We're going to see if Neon can maybe get just ahead off into 1 and 2 here. No, Thurman will hold it once again, and Neon will have to work that run back up. I just don't know if there's going to be a way to build up enough momentum on that low side at this stage of the race.
Yeah, and a thing to note here now is it's Dylan Vilashinsky who's now fallen into the hands of Brendan Trost. So there's a three-way battle for second. All the while, Indy Kirchenbauer is streaking away from this field. He is almost 2 seconds ahead of Vilashinsky. In fact, Indy Kirchenbauer probably going to have to start thinking about lap traffic soon, as it's Jari Brubaker just 3 seconds up the road from him, as we are within the last almost 12 laps of this event.
Yeah, Trost has been working the highest lane that we've seen so far tonight, kind of running up above the third dashed line in turns 3 and 4 in particular. He's reeled in Dylan Vilashinsky as Chris Wetz looks to the inside of Andre Castro off in the background there. That's a battle for 5th. And we're going to have 3 cars under a blanket here for 2nd before too long, as Jarrett Corey's still here. Yellow flag's out.
Oh, there's a caution.
Oh, that's Taylor Thurman.
Taylor Thurman missing a rear wing on his machine.
Have to see what happened to the driver of the 13. He was in a tight battle with Neon as we were kind of watching over the course of this stint here.
Oh, it actually wasn't Crash Neon that was involved with that. It looks to be the 11 machine of Jason Goodman going in side by side into 3 and 4. And then it looks like a bit of net code as it looks like, where basically Thurman probably expected Goodman to turn down a little more, but ultimately it was still netcode that sent Thurman in the wall. Sorry.
No, that's just what we were getting caught on the replay cameras here, is kind of that weird kind of instant snap as the kind of the netcode air bubble hit Thurman's car and sent him into the outside wall. Unfortunate break for Thurman. Ty Keela's going to get a piece of that maybe, so he'll maybe have some damage as well on his IL-15. Not what Ty was looking for either, but a tough break for Taylor Thurman, as we know he's got fans each and every week here on the broadcast. Unfortunate break for him as he was running decently inside the top 10 here the whole race, and he'll be out with damage here late in the going, and we'll get maybe one restart out of this, and this is going to be kind of a do-or-die restart for everybody involved here up at the front of the field.
Yeah, Ty Keela just had some front wing damage. He's currently in the pits getting that repaired. So he's hoping to get back out, maybe pick up a couple of spots if he is fortunate before this ends. We only have roughly 8, 7 or so laps to go when this goes green, Jacob.
Yeah, and I've got the track conditions up on the screen now as Gary Godso was curious just how much humidity was going on here. 95%. Track temperature at 81. Very strong north-northwest wind of 17 to 18 miles an hour. So certainly some very, very difficult conditions to navigate here from Richmond tonight. That wind is probably the biggest factor as well, just given the angle at which it's attacking this track. Can't imagine that's doing these drivers much favors, particularly as they enter the corners here.
Yeah, one of the things is humidity has a lot of interesting effects on these cars. It affects the aerodynamics, it affects the engine power. There's a lot of things, just having a high humidity session can also impact things beyond just, obviously you mentioned the wind, so definitely interesting and tricky conditions as we see Indy Kirchenbauer up at the front of the field, revving his engine, trying to burn additional fuel, trying to find any kind of additional speed to keep Vilashinsky behind him. Though it did seem that he had that he had the number of that Get Good racing machine during that long green run.
Yeah, we've kind of seen the leader have the biggest advantage on these restarts. Obviously, we're single file going here, and you can only pass on the outside, and the leader can't be passed until after the start-finish line, I believe. So they kind of get put in the catbird seat as the pace car lights are off. That'll give Kirchenbauer control of the field once again. He's led all 60-plus laps so far. He'll be looking to lead the last 7 here as we get back going under green.
Yeah, 6 to go. Indy Kirchenbauer punches it. As he has Dylan Vilashinsky looking low, but Vilashinsky's not there. They all file off into turn number 1. Derek Corey is under fire from Andre Castro. Corey on the low side. Now Castro has gotten around Corey. Corey has to worry about Chris Wetz, who's on his low side now.
Yeah, Corey had a bit of a bobble off turn 2 there with Castro trying to pass. He's going to hang tough on the outside on Wetz here so far. We've got 5 laps to go here, and I think people are going to try to do anything they can to make their one move stick, as I think that's really the only shot you're going to have is one move.
Right, and we're already seeing Trost looking on the outside of the Get Good racing machine. That was working really good for him early on in the race. Towards that later stage of that run. It looks like he wants to carry that momentum on the high side. Now looks low on the inside, has a big run on Vilashinsky. We'll see how that high line favors Vilashinsky here as, ooh, looks like Vilashinsky caught the wall a little bit. Trost moved down to give space.
Yeah, that'll move Trost into second for a moment. Vilashinsky will have the momentum. Castro's going to take it to the inside.
Castro making a 3-way fight for second. Castro's going low. Vilashinsky's feeding all the dirty air he can to Trost. Trost collects the wall a little bit. Castro slots in to the 3rd place spot.
White flag in the air. One last opportunity into turns 3 and 4 to anybody make a move. Trost will commit high. Castro low. Vilashinsky holds the middle. Trost makes contact with that outside wall.
Kirchenbauer will win. It will be Andre Castro second. Vilashinsky second, Andre Castro third, Brandon Trost fourth, Chris Wetz in 5th, Jared Corey comes home in 6th place, Crash Neon in 7th, Jason Goodman in 8th, Bill J. Walker in 9th, Gary Yost, a good run for Gary Yost, getting a 10th, a top 10 finish for him. Paikila recovers after that late race damage to 11th. Brian Dees, 12th. Yari Brubaker in 13th. Obviously, the misfortune for Taylor Thurman in 14th. And Ryan Brown, who brought out the first caution of the race, finishes in 15th, Jacob.
Yeah, we'll have some likely very excited drivers. Andre Castro had quite the race last night from Mexico City. So if we get him on up here, I'd be curious to get his thoughts on the wild ride there, as well as the wild ride in this one. He qualified decently deep in the field here tonight. We'll likely get to see what he has to say if he rolls on in here to talk to us here tonight. Wait just a moment. See if any of those drivers get on in here. We'll make sure to get their wonderful automobiles up on the screen as we get to talk to them. Indy's going backwards on the track. Let's make sure we give his celebratory. There he goes. He's going to burn it down here from Richmond. He'll likely be a minute.
Yeah, he very much will be happy with that result. Obviously, he has had some rough weeks, like at the first race I joined to in the booth, Jacob, USA, where he had lost his side pod early on in that race, but obviously has had a much better second half of the season with those wins at North Wilkesboro and now here at Richmond.
Yeah, and I think the big thing we've seen out of Indy in the latter stages of this season is kind of cleaned up qualifying runs. You know, you talk about that race at USA. He qualified deep in the field. You know, there's the incident from Phoenix we saw where he had qualified a bit deeper in the field that week as well, I do believe. So it's been one of those things where I think his qualifying effort has translated into better race finishes, and obviously starting at the front is usually a key to finishing near the front here in Indy NXT Oval Series competition, as we've seen time and time again. So he's been able to convert a lot of these solid starts into solid finishes, and that's improved his results in the back half of the season. We'll see if he's able to maybe close out another one from Pocono. Obviously, a lot of variables going into that one, because it's a very big track, very high speed. I want to say we're going to be approaching 200 some odd miles an hour heading off into turn number 1. See the IL-15s in full force from there. Let's get Dylan Vilashinsky's car up on the screen as we've got him waiting for us down in the waiting for interview room. There's Dylan's machine. We'll get the interview camera rolled up on him. He finishes second here tonight after starting third. We'll roll him on up here. Dylan Vilashinsky, Jacob Collins, Sophie Connell, P1 Broadcasting. You got us?
I got you.
Well, another podium finish for you here after starting on the second row. Not a bad way to do it. We kind of saw that late race restart throw a monkey wrench into a number of situations, and maybe you struggling a little bit on that long run we got in the middle here. Kind of walk us through how these cars, these tires, and I guess the track progressed over the course of the 70 laps here tonight.
iRacing kind of threw us a little bit of a stinker with the track conditions, I think. The previous couple of slots, it was a little bit more sunny. The track had a little bit less usage, and the cars themselves were just a little bit less understeery than they were in this race, which made it really hard to really be able to do anything. I spent pretty much that entire middle run of the race just trying to keep with Indy, and in doing that, I was burning my tires up, and that was letting Brandon catch me towards the end of that run.
Yeah, we were kind of thinking that the tire wear would play a factor, just kind of given the daytime conditions, the overall track as well as it progressed. Obviously, the car's starting tight. You know, that makes it a bit more abrasive on the tires early in the going as you're trying to really push the car through the corners, get it rolling as fast as you can. Kind of walk us through how maybe you were adapting inside the car over the course of the run, maybe adjusting throttle inputs on entry, maybe some in-car tool adjustments to really make this car work as best as it can, particularly on that long run in the middle of the race.
If you were watching the delta between me and Indy that entire run, every time I would lose about a tenth, it was because I was trying something different, whether it be trying to lift a little bit early, lift a little more abruptly, maybe drag the brake even a little bit just to try and get me to the bottom and turned to the point where I can throttle off of 4 without having any issue. 1 and 2 is pretty simple. I think I was faster than Indy through 1 and 2, but 3 and 4 I just couldn't get the power down when I needed to and not hit that wall on the outside.
Sophie, what do you got for Dylan tonight as he conquers another solid run here in Richmond?
Yeah, Dylan, it seems that towards the end of that long green run, you were really under fire from Brandon Tues. You kind of got bailed out by the yellow a little bit there, but how did you make the mental adjustment? Because it seemed like Tues had really found something on the high line. You managed to hold him off really well.
He found something in that yellow I am very thankful for, because he was about maybe a lap and a half from getting by me. The past couple of races I've done, I never even considered trying to run the top, so seeing him start making ground on me was kind of worrying, and then he got right up to me. I was like, okay, I gotta try and figure it out. And first time I tried it, I couldn't do it. I didn't have the speed for it. And then on that restart, I was thinking if the tires cooled down, it was going to be just back to the bottom like it had been for most of the race. But he got that top working like 2 laps in, and I was like, all right, well, this time I'm going to have to try the top and see if it works. And if he had thrown a slider on me, I think he would have gotten the spot. But came out alongside, and then he had to defend from behind, and that let me stay ahead of him.
Well, ultimately, some late race tactics, putting your car in the right place at the right time, given the circumstances of the race, kept you up here in the second spot on the podium here. Friends, family, sponsors, Dylan, you've gotten real good at this. Floor is yours.
As usual, shout out to Get Good Racing, and shout out to the Sprint Car Cup community. They race 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sundays.
Well, thank you for joining us here once again, Dylan. We'll be heading off to the championship finale at the Pocono Raceway. We'll hopefully catch you there in your bid for what likely is your championship here in 2026 Season 1.
I'm feeling good about it. I'm excited for next week. See you guys then.
And we will certainly see you there, Dylan. Good finish here tonight.
Appreciate it.
That'll do it for Mr. Vilashinsky. Another podium finish for him. And we'll talk to Indy Kirchenbauer. Another win for him. No new winners tonight. Indy Kirchenbauer, Jacob Collins, Sophie Connell, P1 Broadcasting. You got us?
I got you.
Well, you put the car at the front just barely. A couple thousandths put you on the pole here, and you never looked back from the drop of the green. Didn't have to really deal with any of the chaos or the very heavy back and forth, especially late in the going, that those cars behind you had to experience. Walk us through maybe what you had figured out here in qualifying and then working your way through the race.
Yeah, I just got the pole. I thought that my lap was horrible. I thought that when I looked at the standings, I was about to be like P5. I got too loose in one, and then I kind of just scrubbed speed in the center, and then on 3 and 4, I scrubbed a lot of speed on entrance, but somehow got the pole just barely over Dylan and Chris. Yeah, from there it was just like after the first few laps, once tires were warmed up, I was just basically cruise control until the end. I just kept it clean. It was just all about the qualifying, and yeah, I don't know. It was, but finally got a win. I got a good amount of points. I don't know. I've still got to pull out the calculator for the points, if it's even theoretically possible. I don't think it is, so good job Dylan on that. And yeah, just it was a well, kind of fun race.
Well, it certainly looked like a good bit of fun, at least driving out there. Richmond's a favorite of mine, and we kind of talked with Dylan a little bit about how the track kind of progressed and people were having to maybe try some different things out, adjust how they were driving around this track. Maybe you weren't quite as impacted by that in the clean air, but were you maybe trying to find some things, particularly as the tires wore out, to find some extra speed over the long run here?
Yeah, once I got like 1.5 ahead of Dylan, I just went slow, just so if we had that caution, I could, when Dylan would be stacked up with me with the draft, I could have a couple good laps and get ahead, which that's what ended up happening. But yeah, I'm hoping that Pocono isn't a Congo line. I really hope it isn't. Hopefully we can have some good side-by-side racing in that. I haven't tested it much, but we will see. So, yep, and I'll be back for next season.
Yeah, we're certainly looking forward to what'll be an interesting race next week in Pocono. Sophie, you got anything to add for Indy tonight?
Well, Indy, I kind of curious because towards the end of the race, when that caution came out, you were approaching some lap traffic, being just within the draft range, possibly. Which would you have preferred? That caution coming out and then having to deal with that restart, or having to worry about lap traffic?
Probably the restart, because on the restart I still won. If it would be a lap car, there's a high risk of getting wrecked. Even if you're way faster, it's still gonna be hard to get by. And of course, just the high risk of getting wrecked. So, yeah, I would rather have the restart, but yeah, and I got those all the restarts that I had were like maybe if one of those times I didn't get as good of a restart, Dylan could have got a run on me on the backstretch, but that was important. And yeah, that's just a pretty got the dub, and we'll try again next week.
Yeah, certainly not too much to hang your head low on with another win here late in the season for you. You know the drill, though, Indy. Friends, family, sponsors, anybody want to shout out, floor is yours.
Yeah, BGM Marine Associates, Make Something on YouTube, Bayside Heating and Cooling, Votive Racing, all of my, family and friends watching, thank you guys for putting on the broadcast, and, I'll see you guys next week at Pocono, and then next season for some good tracks next season as well.
Yeah, we'll certainly be looking forward to the season finale and heading off into next season for more Indy Next Oval Series action. Indy, go celebrate. Good win tonight.
Yep, thank you.
That'll do it for Indy Kirchenbauer. We'll throw Andre Castro's car up on the screen just to make sure he gets a little bit of airtime for finishing third here tonight. Better run for him here tonight than last night at Mexico City. And Sophie, what do you think we're in for with next week at Pocono? Obviously a very different track to the likes that we've seen so far this season in the 2.5 mile triangle in the Pocono Mountains.
Well, Jacob, given how big and long those straightaways are, given the cornering speed that you can maintain, what I predict is blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne, chaos will reign, Jacob. But it still should be a very good race, given the high speed, given the power of the draft there. Should be a very, very exciting race, if a little chaotic.
Yeah, and there's always that ever-tricky turn number 3 modeled after the Milwaukee Mile that throws a big curveball in those high speeds. Found that it's going to be potentially the deciding factor of who gets out of that race with a good finish is who's able to figure out that turn 3, as it always tends to be, and we hope everybody at home is looking forward to that one. We're not done this week, or even tonight for that matter. We'll be following this up with coverage of the Area 51 IndyCar Series from Nashville Super Speedway. That starts in about 10 minutes' time. Mark Murphy will be on the call for that one. Tomorrow night will be the Horizon IndyCar Series from Motegi. That'll be 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Me and Sophie will be back for the Formula Super Series from Motegi East at 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time. Thursday night, we've got the AMA Grand National Series. Mark Murphy on the call, 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time, alongside their Truck Series Friday night, 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time as well. The IndyCar iRacing Series returns this weekend, Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. They'll be live from Sebring. And then Sunday, we've got the Classic IndyCar Series from Montreal at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and the Dark Horse DW12 Series from Iowa at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And that'll bring us back to the final week of iRacing Official Series action for 2026 Season 1. We'll be recapping off the likes of the IndyCar Open Series, the Indy Next Road Series, the IndyCar Oval Fixed Series, and the Indy Next Oval Series as well. I want to thank everybody once again for tuning in tonight from Richmond Raceway. We'll be back next week with more Indy Next Oval Series action from Pocono, and we hope to catch you there. And we'll thank all those that do the difficult jobs all around the world, alongside Whiplash Simcams, for providing cameras for tonight's event. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. We will catch you next time.